hopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, 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 rockin' robin, tweet.
Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McEwen, your ever-relevant hostess, and we are in Newport today talking to one of the most interesting people you'll ever hear on this show. The young people of today, and everybody's younger than I am, well, they have ambitions to make this a great place to live for themselves in an affordable way while not hurting the planet, taking up little space and utilizing the earth. And this is Shane, and unbelievably, he's had quite a life. Shane Goodell, he has a farm that's called?
The Happy Crow Farm, LLC.
The Happy Crow Farm, LLC. So if you can spell, there you go. You've come through fire to get to where you are right now.
I'm still going through little bits of fire, yes.
Okay, I met you at Doucet, and my friends from Canada were taking me out to dinner. And I was so intrigued by you because you had this amazing energy. And I just said, you're a writer, aren't you? And do you do music? And what did you say?
Yes, that is correct.
And I knew immediately that we know each other because when people are creative and...
I'm a poet and a striving musician. When I have time, I pick up my instruments and I enjoy them.
Does everybody stop you and say, excuse me, but are you a poet? Are you a writer? Are you a musician?
Some people.
Because I can just see you in medieval times running around town with a violin. It's like, not that we're in medieval times now, but I have living in the past.
I do like to dress brightly too, so...
What does it say? I'm not working.
This is the Fish concert.
Oh my gosh!
On the airport road.
Yes, of course it was.
Yeah, it really messed up our area. It blocked up the interstates. Everybody got stuck. People were abandoning their cars all the way down 91.
I just saw a documentary on it.
They turned trees upside down and everything. Oh yeah, they trashed the concert grounds and wherever they camped out. There were so many people in our area. It was crazy.
The Fish people were so much different than the people following Jerry Garcia around. The Dead concerts?
Yeah.
They didn't trash anything. They were trashed. They totally stoned all the time. And I was living in East Berkshire, and Highgate was having the big concert for Jerry and the boys.
Yep.
And so people started showing up, and we were 25 miles away from Highgate, and they started showing up, knocking on my door, going, "Hi, can I park here?" And I'm going, "Sure, park anywhere you want." It's so nice. It was like the '60s. A lot of vans and a lot of patchouli oil, a lot of granny gowns.
I love patchouli.
Do you really?
I do.
I wore it when I turned 40 as my own coming of age. And then I thought, what a waste of patchouli on me. I'm such a straight arrow, this boring woman in Vermont. Never tried drugs. My kids say I missed the '60s, I missed all kinds of things. But speaking of that, you've definitely gone that route.
Well, yes, I have.
And how did it work for you?
I would say ultimately, very well. Where would you like me to start?
Small business to getting caught, the high-speed chase.
So it started in high school, and I was working part-time at Hoagie's, trying to balance sports, school, friends. I never really gave myself fully to any of the activities in school except building trades. Hence why I'm probably a self-reliant fella these days. You figure out how to do things for yourself. And I called my boss one day before work. I was hanging out with one of my cousins, and we were getting stoned. And I called him, and I grew backbone. And I said, "Listen, man, I've been working here for 2.5 years. I said, I know I'm only part-time, but I would really appreciate," I didn't say it like that. I said, I need a raise, man. I'm struggling to pay my insurance, my car bills, to balance all this. I've been working here for 2.5 years, right? These are my valid points. Of course, I didn't say it quite eloquently as I speak to you now. And I gave him an ultimatum, and this guy had a very big ego. And his ego really came out to play when I said those words. I said, "Listen, I'm not going to come into work unless you are willing to give me a raise. I know what I'm worth. I know my worth." freaked out on me and said, "You better get in here or you're losing your job." And I said, "Well," I said, "you don't need to worry about firing me because I quit." And I had already started selling marijuana at that point a little bit, and
it wasn't legal at this point, right?
No, it was not. And I used to actually bring it into the high school, so I would take a Crown Royal bag and I would unbutton my pants and I'd hook the Crown Royal bag on the button, and it would have a Ziploc bag with all individual bags of marijuana, and I would go into school with a ½ ounce or an ounce of marijuana every day, and if I sold, I would leave with $150 to $300. It was awesome. But I wasn't paying attention to school, I was never in class, I was always meeting people in the bathroom.
Oh, you were majoring in business and economics. I have a question. Didn't the teachers ask you why you were drinking Crown Royal at school?
No, because no one knew. The bag was down in my underwear.
Oh, and I guess very few teachers in these days went
Yeah,
there.
and of course I smelled like it, but if they ever searched me or anything,
What are
it's
they
not
going
in
to do?
my backpack, it's not there, you know, so.
Did you ever get searched?
Yeah, one time they tried to, and I had it in a jar in my backpack this one time, and I got caught selling a kid a bag of weed in the locker room, and he brought me and he let the other kid go. I sold the bag of weed, and he said, "Come with me to A&D." And it was the day the police officers had just started to be posted at our school, and this day the police officer wasn't on duty for whatever reason. So I looked at the principal and vice principal and I said, "I'm absolutely not opening my bag for you, have a nice day." And I ran as fast as I could down the B-Wing hallway at North Country Union High School. And there was a group of freshmen at the end of the high school, because they used to at least have on the ceiling, they had like a planetary scale size of the planets in the solar system on the ceiling tiles, and they were showing the new freshmen that, and here I come running as fast as I can down the hallway, and he's at the end of the link, this freshman kid is, and I said, "Open the door for me, man!" And I ran out the back door, and I ran across the train tracks and through the tunnel and across people's backyards, and I made it to my Grams, and they suspended me, and I ended up...
But you made the track team.
Yeah, I made the track team. Yes.
Tryouts today. Can you run away from the police?
So that was where I started the running, and running from authorities and running from the consequences of my actions.
Where did you get the pot?
It started off with my friends who were the first friends to introduce me to pot, and they actually knew this fella that lived right down the road from you, close to the high school, and he was getting Canadian hydro weed, so we'd go there and I'd get that, or I'd get it from one of my cousins. And
Everybody had it.
no, actually not many people had it.
Was
so,
Canadian hydro one of the best?
Yeah.
How about that? I'm Canadian. Finally, something to be proud of. No, seriously, I am Canadian and American, but we hear about the pipeline now, coming between Boston and Montreal, Boston, of all the bad stuff, fentanyl and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's too bad. Anyway, we'll get back to your story.
Mm-hmm.
Harmless weed, but gateway drug.
Yeah.
Get stoned and you won't remember the history and math that you're supposed to know in high school.
And my father was quite the delinquent person, but the era he grew up in, delinquency was looked at as a game of cat and mouse for the police. And if they got you, they got you. You got a big ticket for police chases, but you didn't go to jail. You didn't get in big trouble. So my dad always glorified all these stories as I was growing up about all these police chases and all this stuff he did, and it really ingrained that vision. And my dad was my idol. He was like the man to me. I saw him as like the light of the universe. I don't know why. He had a lot of good qualities. He had a good sense of humor. He had his pitfalls as well.
You're speaking of him in the past.
Yes. But he is deceased. He passed away 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Well, you just hold on to those good thoughts. He was your hero.
Well, yeah.
And he must have been a good man because you're his son.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. There's many good things I learned from both my mother and father, despite their struggles with alcoholism and drug use throughout the course of their lifetimes.
Yes.
And they had many struggles before that, but they gave my sister and I a much better life than they were given. And I always keep that in my heart. And
I
keep
wish
that
you'd talk to
gratitude.
everybody who, I have people at my age who can't stand their parents and blame them for everything. I believe you choose your parents before you're born.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever experiences, good or bad. And both are good because you learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
So thank your parents for everything. You do that. That's a
I
hero.
do, I continue, and my mom and I relationship has never been more filled with love and prosperity. And right now my mom, she struggles with some very deep health issues, and her partner has stage 4 cancer, and it led me to moving into the broken down camper. I don't know if I told you that, but
You mentioned that to me when I met you in the natural food store.
yes.
Well, I barely recognized you because you'd lost so much weight.
Yes, I went through it.
And
I
you
went
said,
through a
oh,
very
and I thought, oh my
difficult
God,
time.
what's wrong? And, you know, because I was with my friend from Australia, and we looked, and I said, oh my gosh, it's Shane.
Mm-hmm.
And then you told me about your mother's partner having stage 4 cancer,
Yeah.
and that there was a broken down trailer involved, and
I
you
had to
were,
move my whole house out to afford to pay our mortgage and to move into this broken down camper, which led me through a lot of traumatic experiences and not so good experiences with my parents. And it also led me to having to look deeper at my childhood and what I truly valued in my childhood, and what I had learned and gained from those difficult experiences, and how we have the ability to forgive. But before I had moved out, as I was moving out my apartment, I'm a perseverer, and when I make a commitment, I do my absolute best to follow it through all the way. I made a commitment to do a fast out of a book called The Tao of Detox. It's a 7-day fast to cleanse the digestive system and the colon. And it's a very intricate fast, and you should probably have a vacation time and be doing very little while you're doing this fast. Well, we got hit with that massive heat wave. I had to keep my 3 gardens alive, and I had to move out my whole apartment. And I'm naturally 130 to 140 pounds. That's a healthy, strong weight for me. And that's as light as I should be. But I got down to 117 or 118 when you saw me.
yeah.
Because that fast and me trying to persevere and still take care of everything and work at the Thai restaurant and fix this broken down camper and move out my apartment, and also deal with some very inner experiences where it messed up my digestive system, and it brought me to this place of not being able to take in nutrients to my body. And I'm a Pisces, astrologically speaking, and at my childhood I spent much time at the brook near our house. And that brook, I lived and breathed its waters. I didn't do my homework. I fished. I realized that there's all these wonderful brook trout and rainbow trout in it when I discovered it one day. And I grabbed my fishing pole, and I realized there was somewhere I could fish whenever I wanted. And it was the Pisces, which is one of my spirit totems. And it was calling me to connect with nature, to connect with the presence of life.
Right.
And in this time of despair, I was a vegetarian, and I could feel my soul, because I have a beautiful Pisces tattoo over the heart chakra here.
Yeah.
Yes, and my soul called out to me, and it told me, you have to eat fish. It's the only thing that'll keep you alive. Because I looked up at the sky, I looked in my heart, and I said, God, universe, divine, creator, please, if it's my time to go, I accept that. And I accept that without fear. And I accept my fate, because I know we are all part of a collective consciousness or awareness.
The universe.
The universe, yes. The
When
universe
I say
is
my
alive.
grace, I say to the universal energy which binds all to all, I give you thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I do thank, and I'm thankful that you're still here.
Me too. So I look within my heart to finish where I kind of dotted. And I realize I have to eat fish, and I start implementing fish into my diet, and as soon as I ate it, I could feel it adhere, because my cheekbones were showing, my collarbones were showing, my ribs were, my rings were falling off my finger. I mean, it's amazing that
It doesn't take long to get built up again.
No, definitely not. And I could see that if I died and I left this world, this physical form left this world, that all the people I supported my life's dreams of bringing this tiny house and a farm and good organic food to our community and educating the children about growing food, and this whole manifestation I've been making in my mind and my heart of what I'm to do with this inheritance of this beautiful property. And my mother so generously has devoted her life to buying and to leaving to me. And
What's your mother's name?
my mother's name is Cricket.
Cricket?
That's her nickname.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it.
Her name's Christine, but
Okay.
she got the nickname Cricket because she made cricket sounds as a baby.
Oh,
So I could see very clearly in my heart that if I was to leave this world, that my mother and this man with cancer would potentially, her partner, her beloved, I mean, this man has treated her better than anyone else. And they have so much love for each other and so much respect. But I could see that me going, they would end up potentially homeless, they would end up struggling. But the two cats I have would end up going who knows where, and I give them a very good life. The community that I'm learning to build and I'm learning to connect with in this area, because of my past and because of my transformation, there's a lot of power in that.
oh, definitely.
And I could see that my work is not done here. And that is when I heard within me that what I needed to do. And to heal that childhood self, one of my dear friends, she's a therapist, a very wonderful woman, very spiritually aligned. And she had talked to my inner child. She does child and parent therapy specifically.
May I ask her name?
Yes, yes, you may.
What is her name?
April.
That narrows it down.
April Baudet.
April Baudet. If you have issues such as this, look her up.
Yeah, the Commonplace LLC is a very wonderful place, and I am willingly sharing my own confidential information.
Right. There's no HIPAA law in my house. When you did say you had a struggle and a transformation, do you want to go back and talk a little bit about getting caught and things like that?
So, at that time of my life, I actually was the most miserable I had ever been.
You mean when you were...
When I was dealing. So what happened is I went from being in high school and to being the guy at the parties, to being glorified, and everyone was always happy to see me. And I would influence, kids that were a little bit younger than me to try hallucinogenics in nature and to connect with nature and to see what life was and to what I was learning from spending time in nature, taking psilocybin mushrooms, LSD, and DMT. So naturally this crowd gravitated to me, and I became kind of an idol to many people. But as I grew and the energy of what I was doing grew and I became very successful, I got connected because I went to a concert in Maine, and I got connected because Maine legalized before we did. So I was able to get some of the best quality marijuana for the best prices that were available at that time. And I had a buddy that used to sell me weed, and I told him about this guy, and we got all our money together because I had bought weed off him one other time. We went to the Maine Mall, and he put it in a Trader Joe bag, and I went to the bathroom and I gave him the money, and I came back and I picked up the bag, and he bought us food at the food cart. And I left, and that was how I made the connection. And then later on down the road, we reconnected, me and my buddy, because he had more money than me, but I had enough to get like a pound or two, and he had enough to get like 5 or 10 or as much as he wanted. So as soon as I got connected and got the good deals, it just all of a sudden
It mushroomed.
It mushroomed.
No pun intended.
And I was making 20 to 30,000 every week in my hands. I had an Infinity, the nicest TVs, the nicest gaming systems. I could roll up all the blunts and smoke all the joints and get everyone as high as I wanted without worrying about the financial costs. And people obviously were around for that reason because,
Do you feel used?
yeah, when I got busted, it showed me who my genuine friends were very quickly.
Let's talk about the bust.
The bus is interesting.
Yes,
So
let's just talk about that.
it was an illegal search, and they took a schizophrenic man's word, and I was given these people, which I will not name because he did commit suicide, and I have healed my relationship and my resentment with him for what he had done after the unfortunate event of him taking his life. The schizophrenic man was known to be an unreliable informant. He'd been in trouble in the past. He must have got in trouble again, or he had some kind of schizophrenic episode. And he reported me to the police. Him and his mother wrote statements. They had no wired sales, no evidence. And I was giving them hash oil and marijuana for rent money because he was supposed to be taking his Social Security check and paying his mom and dad, which he probably wasn't doing. And I probably should have checked with them, but I didn't. I just trusted life. You know, I'm very trusting.
I hope you're wiser now.
I am wiser to never make those actions and live in a place where people are not stable.
Yeah.
It's not a wise decision.
No.
So the police, they come to my house and they knock on my door, and I have a mastiff at this time, and he's barking, and the cop didn't come in, and I had locked the door. And upstairs in the loft area, I unscrewed a piece of the plywood, and I was hiding all my marijuana and LSD in the floorboards. And I was going to screw it back on and put the rug back over it and just cross my fingers if he didn't leave. But then he left, so impulsively I said, well, I'm leaving. I'm taking everything I got with me. So I thought I grabbed it all, and I didn't screw back down that board. And I accidentally left a pound of Blue Dream way tucked back there. And I left the 2.5 ounces of hash oil in a pizza box on top of the fridge because that's how my buddy would deliver it from Maine. He would come down in these big duffel bags that were carbon filter duffel bags, and once a week he'd come down and I'd get a half pound of dabs, 10 or more pounds of weed, and just keep rolling it over. But in that time of my life, not to jump the gun, but I was extremely unhappy. I fulfilled all the material desires I thought were going to fulfill my happiness and glorify life. I disconnected myself from my family, from my loved ones. I was constantly dealing with paranoia.
Of course.
And back to getting busted, and the cops leave. I pack up the duffel bag with, I had $10,000, 11 pounds of weed, I think 5 or 6 vials of LSD. I don't know, it was 10 actually, it was a big jug of it. And I take off. I take my girlfriend's car, I have her take my beater car. And
That's a fair
I
trade.
left the Infinity. Her car was a beater too.
Oh, okay.
But I knew that it was her car, and they would try, so I went out in front, and she went out behind me, and they were parked on the Sound Lake access, and I had lived right down the road from there. And as soon as I went by and she went by, the undercover detectives pulled out, and they tried pulling her over first, and that gave me time to gun it. And I was coming to the road that connects Charleston and Derby, I forget the route, but I took a left on Hillam Cellar, and I noticed this green Chevy Traverse was following me, and there was a man in a suit and tie in it. And I knew it was a detective. I knew it was an undercover state police detective. And well, I said, I'm just doing it, I guess. I'm doing what Dad taught me, what he glorified. And I had outrun him before, but I never got caught, and it was never on this big scale. And I started booking it down the Hillam Cellar Road when it hits dirt, and it was very dry and dusty, so it shot up clouds bigger than your house ceiling, 30-foot clouds, and I completely dusted them out. And I turned around and I got away. I outran the police through the whole Orleans County. I made it to our homestead where I live now.
No.
And I parked the car, and I found out that they had found that hash oil and the marijuana.
On the pizza box on your fridge.
Yep, and the informant lied, and he said I was manufacturing the oil when I wasn't. So they charged me for manufacturing a regulated drug, all these serious crimes. If you look up my name, Shane Goodell, there's a lot of good things, newspaper articles and stuff from after I was released from my 2-year prison sentence. But then there's the 2 times I got in trouble, which one was a police chase and drug bust, and another one was a police chase because I was on supervision. And I was terrified. And I didn't want to go to jail.
Did you go to the prison here, or were you shipped to Kentucky, or what?
I served time in every prison in Vermont in the 2 years and 3.5 months.
Why so many?
I got incarcerated during COVID, and I was a work camp member because my crimes are nonviolent, and when COVID hit, they shut down the St. Johnsbury prison, and they shipped us all to random prisons. And prior to that, I had been to St. Albans because the first time I went to jail, I went for 3.5 months. Actually, the first time I stayed in a holding cell for a weekend until my sister bailed me out with my drug money. And then the second time, I got violated for DUI marijuana, and I did 3.5 months. And in that 3.5 month period, I got out of jail, I rebuilt my whole life, I got my license back from the DUI, I got my 2 dogs back. I fulfilled everything I thought was necessary to attain happiness in this life. And what I realized is that I was working a job that was just paying the bills and that I was miserable at. And I had 2 insights. What's the purpose of your life? To work, pay bills, and die? And the other insight was your life would be easier back in prison. And I was appalled by this insight. And I had spiritual insights into the nature. I had spiritual visions of my life, and I saw momentary glimpses of my life, and I saw just how momentary my life was prior to me going to jail. I knew I was going to jail. I didn't know why, I didn't know when, I didn't know how, but I told everyone who was close to me that I would be going to jail and it would ultimately be good for me. So.
And what did you learn in prison that made it good for you?
So that 3.5 months I served,
yeah.
I blamed the system, I blamed everything, I expected all kinds of stuff out of my family, I demanded things I hadn't learned. But when I got out of jail after the 3.5 months and I vigorously rebuilt my life, and I had those insights when I was walking my dogs out in nature, it brought me to the realization my soul knew I had not learned my lesson, but my mind did not want to admit that I was destined to go back to jail.
An eternal soul in a mortal encasing.
Yes. And so I'm like denying these intuitive insights, and I'm just trying to stay focused, and then one thing leads to another. I hang out with old friends, and they're like, dude, come on, man, get some weed and stuff. We won't buy some off you. So I hit up my old buddy again, and I started selling weed and LSD again while I'm working 2 jobs and balancing all this and cleaning my apartment and trying to cook my food and walking my dogs, and I'm doing I'm checking all the boxes, but I'm selling a little weed. It's helping pay my rent, I'm justifying it. But then I start hanging out with this old friend, and he had not found sobriety at this time of his life. So one of the times he comes over, I get a 1/4 pound of marijuana off him, a 1/2 ounce of dabs, I think a sheet of acid, and he comes over, and he has an ounce of cocaine, right? Like 70%, it's one big rock. And he's like, hey man, come on. And he breaks off a big chunk on a plate, and I'm like, oh God. I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll just stay home, and no big deal. I ain't gonna buy it, I ain't gonna waste my money on it. He's giving it out of his generous spirit, so I'll have this experience with him. And cocaine was never my to-go-to drug. It was marijuana, psychedelics. I know that they brought me insights into the nature of my soul.
Yeah.
And I do it with them, and then all of a sudden all the desires get stirred up in me. And then I want to hang out with the woman, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. So I try making it happen, and I hang out with this girl. I tell her I'm not going to drive after I pick her up, that we're going to stay at my apartment, or she's going to get a ride back. I can pick you up, but you got to find a way home. So she agrees. We buy a bottle of Fireball, I
That's
drink.
that alcohol?
Yes, it's liquor. It's a cinnamon whiskey.
Oh,
Yeah, it's tasty. Oh, it's called Fireball for a reason. Tell you what, that's why the Indians called it firewater. And I am a Beneki or.
I was going to ask you what you had in you at Native
American.
American. I knew that when I first met you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how you got in touch with your soul, my dear.
It is. I've always strongly identified with being a Native American and my connection to nature through that identification. So, I pick up this girl, we get the bottle of whiskey, I drink it with her mom picks her up, we don't do anything. The desire I was trying to aim to get fulfilled was not fulfilled, which was sexual intercourse. And she mentioned another woman, and this other woman had just broken up with her boyfriend. It was all mutual friends, the whole circle. I knew her through her old boyfriend, and we all worked together at J Peak as snow shovelers. Not to mention any names, but that was the dynamic. And I heard, and I'm like, okay. She said her name. They're broken up. So I saw this woman was active on Facebook. It's 12:30 at night. Like, what are the odds? She lives down in Rutland, 2.5-hour drive. And I message her, and I compel her to hang out with me.
That would be called a booty call, sir.
Yes, I do that.
Yeah.
And
You kids.
My charismatic character obviously convinced her, and the universe knew it was my destiny. So I go down, and I tell her that she has a 10-month-old baby.
Oh my gosh, and she's fooling around with an almost stranger?
Yeah.
Slap her upside
She
Don't really slap her upside the head, but metaphorically speaking.
Unfortunately, she lost the kid.
Ah!
Just after.
Oh, the baby died?
And, no, I'll get to that.
Okay, never mind. I'm sorry, I'm just...
DCF.
Oh, okay.
So, I drive all the way down there. And when you mix cocaine and alcohol, it makes a whole new substance in your system. They bind together. I think it makes cocamethylamine, it's called.
Nice.
Yeah, and it's a very stimulating experience. That's why people like to drink and do blow or do cocaine. They go well together.
Okay.
Yeah, real well.
Do not be taking notes here.
Yes. Do not try any of this at home. This is my shared experience. And of course, I just drive all this way. I put in all this effort to fulfill this desire. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, I can't leave my kid behind. And she's saying all this stuff. And I'm just like, well, I guess like just bring him along. And we can drive around. And I don't know, like I came all this way and we'll figure something out, right? So I do that, and when I was waiting on her street, I forgot to turn my headlights on. And I'm in Rutland. My headlights were off while I was waiting for her to come out. She messages me, explains to me what's going on, and then she comes out after I said, well, I just drove a long ways, and I'd hate to waste our time, and we can at least hang out and get to know each other, keep it simple, I guess. And I start driving, and I ask her, because I'm high and drunk, and I say, where's the closest place to get cigarettes? I'm craving a Native American spirit. She's like, oh, there's a store down the road here. I'm driving, I'm doing the speed limit, I'm driving responsibly, I know I'm on supervision, I'm not trying to get pulled over. My headlights were off.
Oh.
So I'm in the city, and I'm raised in an area where if your headlights aren't on, you know they're not on. You ain't going very far.
It's true.
Unless it's a full moon, and then you still know they ain't on. And cop blue lights come on behind me, and I look at her nonchalantly, and I say, oh, somebody's getting pulled over. I didn't think it was me. I'm driving well, right? Mm. And so I turn down the next right to let him go by and let him be on his way. He turns with me, and it's a U, and I'm going around this U, and all of a sudden the panic arises, and I see all the effort. I see I have my dog's back. I see that everything I worked hard for, I'm definitely going to lose. I'm drunk, I'm high, I have this woman and child in my car. I might not feel drunk and high, but that cop's going to know that my eyeballs probably don't look right and ain't dilating right. And I might have a little nervous energy. And I'm on supervision. They look up your name, they get in the database, and you're screwed.
And you were?
You're going to jail, yeah. So I knew I was going to jail, and I started to panic. And I saw all of the effort I put in flash before my eyes, in my mind.
That was your lesson?
No, so I come to the end of the U-turn, and all of a sudden another cop car comes out of nowhere, and he's gonna make me T-bone him. But there's barely enough space to get by him. And I'm still panicking. I'm deciding, what do I do? Do I pull over or do I gun it? And all of a sudden, I'm trying to resist the habit of running. I'm sick of running. You know, part of me is sick of running. I don't want to do what I'm doing anymore. And all of a sudden, I skate around that cop car. I just barely miss him. And I realized, oh, you're basically outrunning him already. And my foot just to
With the girl and the baby in the car?
Yep, and the worst part was she didn't even buckle her kid up. It was a Ricky Bobby story.
What's a Ricky Bobby story?
You never seen that movie, Talladega Nights?
No, I've heard
With
about
Will
it.
Ferrell? You gotta watch it. He was born
We'll get into that another time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you spent 2 years in prison?
Yeah, so I get charged with 3 more felonies, you know, endangerment, you name it, all of which I committed. I did the crime. And I'm not trying to deny it, but I'm just trying to navigate as harmoniously as I can. So I come into the holding cell, and something had immediately changed. There was no blame left, and I had this clarity, and I could see that every action of my life was my choice, whether it was influenced by relationship factors and societal conditioning or the conditioning of my parents and family, but I was subconsciously being driven by this conditioning, and I no longer had to be driven by this conditioning. And I called my sister up because I lied to her. I actually outran the cops on foot because I went down a dead-end street. First turn I took was a dead-end street. I outran them on foot. I forgot my cell phone. I ended up at this bar called The Venue. And I tried calling, and the taxi cab driver had a CV radio, and he ratted me out. I tried calling my sister. I told her my car got stolen. Please come pick me up. I'm in Rutland. I left my keys in my car. I lied to her. She had just moved out my whole apartment, her, my gram, and friends, and they looked out for me while I was in jail, and I incessantly complained and asked all this nonsense of them when it was my fault I'm in jail. The first sentence. And then I'm back in the holding cell, and I was like, well, I gotta call my sister. And I call her, and I said, I'm so sorry. She said, you know you're on the news. And I said, I'm sure I am. And I said, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. And I said, I'm so very sorry. I said, I know you're not going to believe me, but I will never, ever come back to jail again in this life. I said, I truly learned my lesson, and I was crying, and this remorse came out of me, and this honesty. And I said, I'll just max out my sentence and do what I have to do if that's what life needs of me. I know that I've been put here because I need time to reflect and to look deeper. And she didn't believe me. It actually took 2 to 3 years after I was released from prison to gain her trust back and to prove that. And even now, there's still some circumstances where I can see she's concerned. She's 7 or 8 years older than me. She did a lot of the babysitting. She mothered me when I was younger. So she has that relationship with me, kind of a mother-brother relationship.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're really out of time just about for this particular show, Shane.
Okay.
But your life as it is now, we haven't talked about what Shane's doing now, but if you haven't noticed the transition in this man between the time we started and the time we're finishing, he's a solid fellow, doing well, and helping the universe, actually. And the wisdom you were born with is now out. And I'm really proud of you.
Thank you, Heather. I do appreciate that. And to just wrap it up quickly, after that call of remorse, I had read a book called Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh, of course.
And at the end of the book, his dog dies, both his dogs die in a very heroic way. and he moves from the country and he goes to the city, to the unknown. I was away from my family. I knew I had to give up my 2 dogs, and I was in the city of Rutland, and I'm a country boy. And 2 weeks after, I found a book called We're All Doing Time, and I devoted my whole 2-year prison sentence to yoga and meditation and learning what that means and learning how to harness the energy and focus the energy of my mind. And now I've been out of jail for 3 years, and I have not only built a tiny house, paid off loans, gotten a truck, I've fulfilled all of these things in such a short amount of time with perseverance, diligence, respect, self-effort, kindness, and just a love and awareness of life, and that the compassionate love and presence of life exists in all sets of eyes, in all living beings. And we are here to remind each other of that truth. And we all have arisen from that truth and taken form in this life, and we all will merge back into that truth, whether people want to accept that as reality or not. I know that is true from my own inner experiences of meditation and of life.
And I know it to be true myself.
And I'm sure you do. You're very wise.
No,
clear
I'm not.
woman.
It's not so much that. It's the fact that when you know everything's going to be all right at the end, because the end is in the beginning. And if you're at one with nature, and I was very fortunate when I was growing up. I was shipped off to my grandparents who retired to become vegetable farmers.
Oh, wow.
So I spent my early years, sometimes months at a time, running barefoot through the garden, just enjoying. And they would send me to the woods. Go and play in the woods. And maybe she won't come back. But I did, and I had that freedom, and I didn't have anything encasing expectations.
Yeah, so it's
So
like
I had,
being with the brook and nature.
the nature. I'm so at home in Vermont because it speaks to me like it speaks to you.
I understand that completely. I do.
Now, when you get your garden all going, and when you're moved in and everything's settled and everything's great, you're going to be producing some things like this. Where did they go? Oh, you took them? Watch this, folks.
These are just baby cauliflowers. I harvested the big ones, and Heather's so kind and sweet. I wanted to bring her a couple bouquets of flowers.
Oh, these are for me?
Yeah.
I thought you just wanted to talk to them on the
they're
show.
for you to eat them.
Listen to this. These are little cauliflower, and they're the sweetest little things. They're gorgeous, and there's a little crack. When you see them splitting here, Shane taught me, that's when they're ready to pick. And these are...
You should harvest them before, but I thought they were going to grow a little bigger. So if that splits the first indication that they are about to flower and they're about to blossom.
Well, they couldn't be any more beautiful than this.
And this is edible. The greens are actually the
yes.
vegetable part, and the cauliflower is the flower of the plant.
Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you
can
very
steam
much.
it, stir fry it, roast it. It's good anyway.
I'll roast it.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I have someone coming over tomorrow for a chat, and I think I'll cook it for that person.
Yes.
And
Here, store it in the paper bag.
Thank you, my love. And
very welcome.
so Shane Goodell will be back to talk with us again, and maybe I'll go and film it at his tiny house, at his garden.
Oh, yeah.
Would that be fun?
That would be. That would be.
No matter what you do in your youth, or even in your middle age, or ancient, as am I, mistakes happen. And you're lucky if mistakes happen, if you learn from
They're
them.
great fortunes. They're great blessings.
They
If you
are.
are willing to look honestly at yourself and to be accountable fully and very deeply, and to forgive yourself, and from that place you will begin to forgive everyone, and you will be immersed in this love and awareness
Yeah.
towards everyone. Even in difficult circumstances, you will still come back to that love and awareness.
I'm glad to say
So
that.
thank you for your time, Heather.
It's been my pleasure, believe me.
I'm very
And
grateful.
you are? Well,
Yes,
I am too.
I'm very grateful. And thank you, everyone. Namaste. My soul sees yours. And remember, you are the love of life.
That's great. Thanks for watching Life is Good. Life really is good. See you next week.
Life is great. Life is good. Life is great.